Hi, welcome to Rules Challenge. My name's Carter Maxwell, and in this episode we're going to be taking a look at the game Trajan. Now this game was not on my list of games I plan to do videos on, but a gaming buddy of mine asked me recently to teach it to him, so I figured, well, as long as I'm brushing up on the rules, might as well take advantage and make a video out of it. I don't know if there's anyone out there still playing the game, but hopefully there's enough out there to make this worthwhile. If you're new to the show, the way this works is it's basically just a test of your understanding of the rules of the game. But instead of just asking you questions from the rule book, it'll be like you're watching a real game being played, but I'll periodically just stop and ask legal or illegal. And it's your job to figure out if the turn you just watched was done correctly. I do deliberately emphasize rules that people tend to misunderstand. So in addition to being a rules challenge, it'll also function somewhat like a video FAQ. Before we get started on the challenge, I do want to make some suggestions for new players. One would be, have a marker you can use to indicate who the active player is. And I think the rule book even mentions something about that. You'll see me using the knob off a dresser here just to keep track of whose turn it is. But even beyond that, I would even use this to mark the tray that you've pulled the action markers from, because if you're making, if you're just moving one action marker, that's pretty easy to track. But if you're moving a handful of them, it's easy, and you say you change your mind about what you want to do, it can be really tricky to back out your turn unless you've put down a marker so you remember which tray you've pulled them from. I would also have a system for tracking the new markers that have been placed. As opposed to, say, just putting them directly into the trays. And, if somebody changes their mind about a move or realizes they did something wrong, if you've gotten everything mixed together, it can be really, difficult to figure out which pieces were put where. So I always make sure I put the pieces on these interior hexagons so that which are the new pieces that have been placed. And then if you decide, nope, I actually wanted to make sure orange ended up over here, you can just kind of back out your turn a little bit, replace the pieces, and there's no confusion about which pieces you just put down. And then once you've decided you like it the way they're positioned, then you can just slide them into their trays. All right, I think we're ready to start the challenge. As usual, we'll be picking up the game already in progress. We have completed the first quarter and done all the scoring and wrap up with that, and now we're about to start the second quarter of the game. All right, it's Red's turn, and he wants to take a military action, so he'll pick up the 2 action markers in his seaport tray. We'll move the time marker 2 spaces, and he'll distribute those markers. For the action, Red will move his leader into a new province and claim the religion tile there. And he'll put that onto his mat on top of the existing tile there. Everything Red did on his turn was legal, but people do sometimes wonder if it's legal to stack these tiles on your mat. And that's totally fine. Whether it be the demand tiles or extra action tiles or Senate tiles, you're not limited to just 3 Senate tiles as shown here or 3 demand tiles. You can pile them up as you need to. I should also mention that that's true for the Trajan Demand tiles too. So say if Red were to obtain a second Trajan bread tile, he could just stack that second one right on top here. Not as likely to be useful, but you can certainly do it. And if during the quarter 2 demands for bread happen to come up, both the bread Trajan tiles would apply toward meeting that demand. Now it's Brown's turn, and she's going to use the action markers in her military tray. There's 2 of those. So we'll move the time marker up 2 spaces. Then she'll distribute the markers, and that will allow her to take a Trajan action. She likes this green and white +2 marker, so she'll take that. And she has a good spot where she should be able to achieve it next turn, so she'll place it there. This mistake by Brown was pretty basic, but you should always repeat this rule fairly early in the game if there's new players involved. New Trajan tiles always come onto your board under the arch. Then you move the arch to the next open space. And if every space happens to have a Trajan tile, then you would move the arch to the middle until a space opens up. So Brown should have placed it here, then move the arch to the 4 slot. Now it's Blue's turn, and she's going to use her seaport tray, which has 5 markers in it. So we'll move the time marker up 5 spaces. And she'll distribute those. And that will allow her to take a construction action. She'll move her worker onto this 3-point window tile and score the 3 points. Then she'll place the tile on her mat, and that's the first one she's obtained, so that'll give her a free military action. For the military action, she'll move her leader into an adjacent province and claim the tile there. She would normally now move it onto her mat, stacking it on top of the existing one, but she wants to use it right away, so she'll go ahead and spend it. For that action, she'll move a legionnaire into that province, and that'll score 5 points. So we'll move Blue from 17 to 22. This turn raises a few issues that are worth discussing. Blue originally took a construction action, and the tile she took resulted in her taking a military action, and then she spent an extra action tile to take a second military action. And sometimes people will see that and say, well, wait a second. You can't spend an extra action tile for an action that wasn't your original action. And the first edition of the rules actually did leave that kind of a mystery, but the publisher has clarified, and the second edition of the rules clarify as well, that it's okay to do that. That if you gain a free action from the construction tiles, you can spend an extra action tile on that action. I should also mention that Blue had acquired a new free military action tile and then spent it right away. And she might have been tempted to use this other one still on her mat, but remember that you can only use 1 extra action tile per turn. Oh, and the other thing I should mention, it wasn't really relevant here because Blue already had a military extra action tile. Let's say she didn't have that. And so she has acquired a new one, and people often wonder if it's even legal for her to immediately use that the same turn she's acquired it. That would be totally okay. Now it's Green's turn, and he's going to use the markers in his Senate tray, and there's 3 of those. So we'll advance the time marker 3 spaces. Then he'll distribute the markers. And he'll take a seaport action. Green knows he wants wine and fish for his bonus tile. Green sees a fish in the discard pile, so he'll grab that. And he doesn't see anything else he likes, so for his second card, he'll just take one from the draw pile. And he'll add those to his hand of cards. Probably almost everyone recognized that the way Green did that seaport action was wrong. But 3 of the 4 things you can do are so similar that it does get a bit tricky and people sometimes mix them up. So let's do a quick review of your options during the seaport action. 1, you could simply draw a card from a discard pile and keep it, and that's your action. Alternatively, you can draw 2 cards from the deck and then discard 1 from your hand. And that could be one of the cards you just drew or one that was already existing in your hand. The third option is you can play 1 or 2 cards from your hand into your display area. Then, however many cards you played into your display area, 1 or 2, you then draw from the deck an equal number of cards and add them to your hand. And then the fourth option is to ship commodities, but we'll deal with that in a later turn. Green's mistake was in doing a weird combination of the actions. There's no seaport action that allows you to take cards from both the discard pile and the draw deck in the same action. The only time you'll ever do that is during the setup of the game when you're drawing your 3 cards to create your initial hand. Now we're back around to red, and he's going to use the markers in his military tray, and there's 7 of those. We'll mark that on the time track, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then he'll distribute the markers. That activates the Senate tray, and since he's got yellow and green there, that achieves this Trajan tile. He'll add it to his player mat, and we'll mark the 1 victory point. Then for the Senate action, he gets to move up 1 on the Senate track, and that's worth 2 points. So we'll mark that. 1, 2. And now, since red's turn caused us to reach the end of the round, we'll draw a demand tile. This was a really basic turn, but I mainly wanted to show an example of using a big pile of action markers because that sometimes confuses people. But if you've got enough to do like more than a lap around, it still works like normal. You just pick up the whole pile, start distributing them, and it doesn't matter if you have more than enough to reach the spot where you started. You just keep on going. Wherever you stop, you stop. And it actually, using like 7 or more markers can really be convenient because, as we saw in this case, red had a Trajan tile that called for green and yellow, and he was able to just strategically distribute these as he went to make sure that green and yellow ended up in that spot. So it's actually a great way to achieve a Trajan tile. And also, just touching quick on the Senate action, it was correct that red scored those 2 points right away. Sometimes people will assume that these are points that you take only during the balance of power phase at the end of a quarter. But no, the minute you advance to a new spot, you score those points. So, if you were to say advance 3 times during a quarter, you don't just score the 4 points at the end of the quarter. You score 2 when you land there, 3 when you land there, 4 when you land there. Okay, moving on to brown. She's going to use the markers in her Trajan tray. That'll be a quantity of 2. We'll advance the time marker 2 spaces. Then she'll distribute those with the white ending in the seaport tray. So that'll achieve this Trajan tile. We'll score those 4 points, moving brown from 9 to 13. Brown's not sure what she wants to do with the +2 marker because she doesn't have any extra action tiles yet. So she's not going to assign it at this time. She'll just keep it nearby. Then she gets to take her seaport action. She has 3 furs that she wants to ship, so she'll play those into her display. The ship that's best suited to shipping 3 of a kind is still on its front side, so those 3 furs will be worth 12 points. So we'll mark brown from 13 to 25. Then we'll flip the ship to its gray side. And then brown will discard those 3 furs. The way brown handled that turn was a little bit of a mess, so hopefully everyone caught that it was illegal. First thing she did wrong was the way she handled that +2 marker. You cannot wait to decide later how you want to assign it. As soon as you acquire it, you have to pick a slot for it and put it in there and hope you choose well. The other thing brown did wrong, and this was actually to her huge detriment, was discarding these 3 fur cards. When you ship commodities, you just play them into your display. You don't ever end up discarding them. And that's crucial for the end game scoring. She's got this bonus tile that gives her 3 points per fur. and those have to be in her display at the end of the game to score those points. So when you ship them, put them into your display and leave them there. Now it's Blue's turn, and she's going to use the action markers in her forum tray, and there's just one there. We'll move the time marker forward 1 space. She'll put that into her military tray, and now she has a yellow and pink there, so she can achieve this Trajan tile and get a +2 marker. First, we'll mark the 4 points from that Trajan tile. That'll move her from 22 to 26. She needs to assign that marker, so she'll go ahead and assign it under her military action space. And now she gets to take a military action. She'd love to move her leader directly up to Germania Superior, but it's not adjacent to her current province, so she'll just move over to this province occupied by Brown's leader. Now she wants to use her free military action tile, and since she just assigned that +2 marker to it, she'll get to take 2 free military actions. So she'll spend that. With the first of her free actions, she'll move her legionnaire into that province, and that'll be worth 3 points. And we'll mark those, 1, 2, 3. With her second free action, she'll move her leader into Germania Superior and take the tile that's there. And she'll add that Senate tile to her mat. There are 3 things I want to point out about Blue's turn. First, people often ask if you get to keep those +2 markers after they've been used, and the answer is yes. The extra action tile itself has to be discarded after it's used, but the +2 marker stays there permanently on your mat. Second, it was fine that Blue moved into a province where Brown already had a leader there. Opponents' leaders and legionnaires don't block movement at all. And then third, it was fine that Blue scored the full 3 victory points for placing a legionnaire there. Brown had a leader present, but not a legionnaire, so Blue gets the full 3 victory points. If Brown had already had a legionnaire there, then for Blue it would have been a -3 points. So in this case, 3 minus 3, Blue would have gotten 0 for that. Or say in this region, if Brown has a legionnaire there and then Blue places one, Blue would get 6 minus 3, or 3 victory points. All right, this looks like a good place to wrap things up. I hope you got something useful out of the video. If you think I got something wrong or have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment. Again, I'm Carter Maxwell. This has been Rules Challenge, and I'll see you soon.